Someone told you EV batteries die in a few years, that you'll eventually face a $15,000 replacement bill. That range just quietly disappears until the car becomes useless. But the research on 30,000 real-world EVs actually shows that more than 90% of electric vehicles that are 10 years or older are still running on their original batteries. The fear spread fast. The data tells a completely different story. The skepticism didn't come from nowhere. When the first modern EVs launched, nobody had a 10-year track record to point to. The predictions were educated guesses, and some of the early numbers weren't encouraging. A 2010 New York Times piece noted that battery lifespan estimates started upward from 7 years, with no hard ceiling in sight. That stuck. Then came the smartphone comparison. Everyone has watched a phone battery go from lasting all day to dying by noon within 2 hours. Apply that logic to a car battery and the math gets uncomfortable fast. The answer, it turns out, is EV batteries are nothing like phone batteries. They have thermal management systems, sophisticated software, and built-in buffers that prevent the pack from ever truly hitting zero or fully maxing out. The engineering designed to solve degradation was working far better than early predictions gave it credit for. 3 beliefs drive most of the distrust: that EV batteries wear out quickly, that replacement is inevitable, and that range disappears after a few years. Real-world data challenges all 3. Why most owners never replace the battery. Here's something the fear narrative misses entirely. Battery replacement in EVs isn't a sudden event. There's no moment when the car just stops working. What actually happens is much slower and far less dramatic. Lithium-ion batteries degrade in what researchers describe as an S-curve. There's a small, fast drop early on, often in the first year or 2. As the battery settles into its steady state, then comes a long, flat middle period of slow, linear aging. The catastrophic drop-off at the end of the curve, the part where the battery collapses, for most real-world EVs on the road today, that point hasn't arrived yet. Cox Automotive has evaluated nearly 80,000 EVs at auction. The average battery health score across the entire sample is 92%. Cars that are 2, 3, and 4 years old coming off leases are showing battery health scores above 95%. Recurrence data on EVs with more than 150,000 miles shows those vehicles, the heavily used ones, still delivering at least 83% of their original range. And for EVs that are 10 years old or older, the battery replacement rate is 8.5%. That means more than 9 out of 10 decade-old electric vehicles have never needed a new pack. What simply happens instead is simple. Range decreases gradually over many years. Not dramatically. Not in a way that makes the car useless. A vehicle originally rated for 265 miles might be delivering 220 after 12 years of real use. That's still a functional, practical car for most daily drivers covering under 40 miles a day. It's still more than enough. The car doesn't fail, it ages. And it ages more slowly than almost anyone predicted. Habit number 1. Avoid leaving the battery full too often. This one is counterintuitive because a full battery feels like a responsible choice. It isn't, at least not as a daily habit. A lithium-ion battery at or near 100% state of charge is under greater chemical stress than one at 50 or 60%. The cells are at maximum voltage, internal pressure is elevated. The battery isn't in danger, but it's working harder to hold that position. And if high temperatures are part of the picture, the stress compounds. The data backs this up. Geotab's 2025 analysis of over 22,000 EVs found that vehicles spending the majority of their time at extreme charge levels, either very full or very empty, showed faster degradation meaningfully. The threshold is significant. Degradation only accelerated sharply when vehicles spend over 80% of their total time parked at high or low states of charge. Normal daily use doesn't cross that line, but the habit still matters. Most manufacturers and battery engineers recommend keeping daily charge between 20 and 80%. Not because charging 200% once destroys the battery, it doesn't, but because doing it repeatedly, especially when the car sits in that state for hours, adds stress that accumulates over the years. The practical version of this is simple. Set a charge limit in your car's settings. Most modern EVs allow this. For daily driving, 80% gives you enough range for almost any routine without the sustained chemical load of a full battery. Save the 100% charge for road trips. when you actually need every mile the car can deliver. It's a 2-minute setup that pays back over the life of the battery. Habit number 2. Don't overuse fast charging. Fast charging is one of the best things about owning a modern EV. It's one of the most easiest habits to overdo. DC fast charging works by pushing high current into the battery in a short window. That speed comes with a trade-off: heat. The faster the charge, the more heat is generated inside the pack. Under normal conditions, the thermal management system handles it. Used occasionally, fast charging causes no meaningful long-term damage. The problem is frequency. Geotab's data is specific here. Vehicles that use DC fast charging for more than 12% of their total charging sessions degraded at an average rate of 2.5% per year. Vehicles that stayed below that threshold averaged 1.5% per year. That gap compounds. After 8 years, the low-frequency group is projected to retain 88% of original capacity. The high-frequency group retains 76%. The power level matters too. Vehicles frequently using chargers above 100 kilowatts, the fastest public chargers available, degraded at 3% per year on average. That's double the rate of those primarily using lower power charging. None of this means fast charging is something to avoid entirely. Road trips exist. Time pressure is real. The technology is there for exactly those situations. But using a 150 kilowatt fast charger every morning because it's convenient, when a level 2 charger at home would do the same job overnight, is where the habit starts costing you. The better default is home charging on level 2. Slower, gentler, and designed exactly for the daily use case. Reserve fast charging for when you actually need it: long drives, time-sensitive situations, anywhere away from home where the alternatives don't work. The battery handles both. It just handles one of them better over time. Before we continue to the third habit, hit the subscribe button to stay connected with us. Habit number 3. Pay attention to heat. All of the variables that affect long-term battery health, temperature is the most people underestimate, and the hardest one to fully control. Heat accelerates the chemical reactions inside battery cells. It increases internal stress, speeds up the calendar aging process, and pushes degradation faster than almost any charging habit. Geotab found that EVs operating in hot climates degrade on average of 0.4% faster per year than those in mild climates. That may sound small, but over 8 years, it's a measurable difference in the battery's remaining capacity. The practical version of this shows up in 3 places. Parking matters more than most owners realize. A car sitting in direct sunlight for 6 hours on a hot afternoon isn't just uncomfortable to return to. The thermal management system activates to keep the pack in a safe temperature range, drawing from the battery while the car sits idle, doing nothing except protecting itself from the heat. A shaded parking spot, a covered garage, or even a reflective windshield sunshade changes that equation meaningfully. Charging a warm battery immediately after a long summer drive is one of the most avoidable stressors. The battery is already elevated in temperature from the drive. Fast charging generates more heat on top of that. The management system is now dealing with 2 heat sources simultaneously and has to throttle charge speed to protect the pack. Waiting 30 to 60 minutes after driving home, or using scheduled charging to start the session overnight when ambient temperatures drop, removes that stress entirely. State of charge and heat combined. A battery sitting at 100% in hot weather is dealing with both elevated volt stress and thermal stress at the same time. That combination is consistently flagged in battery research as one of the fastest paths to long-term degradation. Avoiding it requires nothing more than keeping the daily charge limit at 80% and not leaving the car parked outdoors fully charged during a heat wave. None of these requires significant effort. They require only awareness. Why some EV batteries age better than others. Not every EV battery follows the same curve. The spread in real-world degradation data is significant, and it comes down to a handful of factors that interact directly in every vehicle. Thermal management is the biggest differentiator. EVs with active liquid cooling systems designed to distribute temperature evenly across the entire pack and maintain a consistent operating range hold up dramatically better over time than older designs that relied on passive cooling or no thermal management at all. The early Nissan Leaf is the clearest example. No active cooling, a small pack, and degradation that was noticeably faster than in vehicles with managed temperature systems. That gap has largely closed in modern EVs, but it explains why the earliest generation had higher replacement rates. Battery chemistry plays a role too. Lithium iron phosphate batteries, increasingly common in newer EVs, handle repeated full charges better than nickel manganese cobalt chemistry and tend to show stronger long-term cycle life. If your EV uses LFP chemistry, the manufacturer will often tell you that charging to 100% regularly is fine. The chemistry tolerates it. And then there's behavior. Two identical vehicles, same model, same year, same climate. One charged primarily on level 2 overnight, one hammered on fast chargers daily, will not have the same battery health after 5 years. The data is clear on this. Charging behavior is the single biggest controllable factor in long-term battery degradation. What I'd personally focus on. If I owned an EV and wanted the battery in the same shape 5 years from now as it is today, 3 things would be non-negotiable. I'd set the daily charge limit to 80% and leave it there. The range difference on a normal Tuesday is invisible. The reduction in daily voltage stress on the battery multiplied across 5 summers of hot days is not. Save the full charge for road trips. That's what it's there for. I'd use level 2 charging as my default and treat DC fast charging as a tool, not a routine. The convenience of fast charging is real, so is the thermal load it creates. Using the slower charge for daily needs and reserving fast charging for situations that actually call for it is the one behavioral change that Geotab's data consistently shows making the largest single difference in long-term health. And I take heat seriously. Shaded parking when it's available, not plugging in immediately after a long drive in a hot afternoon, using scheduled charging to run the session overnight instead of in the evening heat. None of these cost anything except a small amount of planning. EV batteries are holding up better than anyone expected when the first modern EVs rolled off the line. The 10-year replacement rate of 8.5% across a generation of cars built on early technology is genuinely reassuring. For modern EVs built after 2022, the replacement rate outside of recalls is around 0.3%. These batteries are engineered to outlast the cars. The habits described here just make sure they actually do. If you've noticed changes in your EV's range over time, or you've changed how you charge based on what you've learned, drop it in the comments below and subscribe for more EV content that focuses on what actually affects your car, not just what makes a good headline.